Hi, this is Rounik from Ask.Audio, and we're at Soundmit 2020, the virtual edition. And I'm joined here by Gert from Moon Modular. Hi, Gert, how are you doing?
Hi, not that bad. So I'm at Berlin, and so I'm experience a virtual sound mit. Obviously, I like very much to experience it. Actually, I wanted to join at Torino this year, but these days it's better probably to stay at Berlin.
Yeah,
But I guess having still this connectivity and talking to people and talking to you, that's obviously a nice thing, and I'm pretty curious how the virtual edition, how that really will work. So how many people will participate and what the feedback on it is, whether people really like it or have suggestions how to improve it, and so on and so forth. So really
yeah,
looking forward.
yeah, it'll be very interesting. So, okay, so first off, I'm very curious to hear more about yourself, Moon Modular. I believe that you've been Moon Modular for about 10 to 12 years, starting off with a consultancy, and then coming into creating modules. Can you tell us a bit more about that side of things?
Yeah, I think I have to say it's for myself, it's sort of a second springtime. Um, because I started in the late 70s with DIY and got pretty much impressed by what Tangerine Dream was doing, Klaus Schulze was doing, Keith Emerson was doing. So these large modulars at those days. And obviously I couldn't afford it because I wasn't able to buy, I didn't have a house and I couldn't buy a car, so I couldn't buy a Moog modular, for example. But pretty impressed. And at that time, there was in the Electro magazine and All Popular Electronics, All Wireless World, I think, there were DIY schematics and you could buy kits and so on and so forth. So at that time, I started a little bit with that. And then over the years until late 1990, yeah, before 2000, I well, MIDI was in, MIDI was out, analog was out, whatever. And at that time, late in the 90s, synthesizers.com and Paul Schreiber with Modem did start. And I really liked to build stuff again. But at that time, people did call me and say, okay, we know that you can do that stuff. Why don't you help us refurbishing synthesizers, rebuilding synthesizers? I say, yeah, yeah, yeah. So at that time, for example, I got in contact with Ed Buller, well, with Node these days. And but then those guys like Udo Hunten and Albi Meskis, they asked me, well, you can do all that stuff. Why don't you build a module for us? Because Udo Hunten had a large Moog modular with a lot of sequences. And he said, I need something to synchronize those sequences with by a common clock. And I started twiddling around. And so basically the first module I designed in that context has been a trigger sequencer, which actually these days is a Moon 563. And when I built it and he saw it, he said, yeah, well, that's not bad. Do you think you can sell that? And say, oh, well, I don't know, probably yes. Okay, then we put it on the internet. And I think it was in April 2008 where this module did appear on our website. So Lunar Experience, Moon Modular. And at that time, obviously, I didn't expect that it will gain that speed and end up with something like that, which is 2020. We started with one module. Obviously, these days it's everything. So as you can see, we are pretty much inspired by what Moog did, but only in terms of look and feel. So you have large knobs, lots of space, clear graphics, and that stuff. Technically, while there are some inspirations, like everybody is inspired by whatever. So there is a Moog ladder filter in our line, and we have a sort of Oberheimisch filter. But all the sequences where we actually started with, this is really quote quote self-developed and new and nice, and I don't know. So yeah,
Well,
probably.
Thank you. So that behind you, that the monster, I believe that some people call it a monster, but officially it's not called the monster, right?
No, it was the funny thing is the guys who are building the cabinets, so it's a metal one. Um, they say, okay, that's a monster. Actually, that's a mini monster because there's even a larger one, which Hans Zimmer has ordered. And for me, if you look at that one, it's the first time that there is a system which is not looking like the Death Star of Star Wars. And I always did call it Death Star because I never managed to get it really without any holes in it or modules removed and so on and so forth. But these days I thought I need something which is a complete star as such or moon, to really, if people are calling, because that I can say, okay, yeah, let's have a look and so on and so forth. And the other thing is it's really working. So that's the more interesting thing.
It always helps when a machine actually works and makes sound, doesn't it? It's very, very good. But so you've got the sequences there in the top left. I know that that's where you started from, wasn't it, with the sequences?
Yeah, we started really because the Moog sequences have certain limitations, and Udo Hanten had a lot of ideas what could be done differently. And so we started on the sequencer side. But then people said, okay, you can build nice sequences. Why don't you build VCO and VCF and ADSR and that stuff? But actually, we started really with sequences, and then later on completed it with audio stuff. And these days, even I always say, okay, I will never do that. And then people smile and say, yeah, well, if this guy says he will never do that, just wait a little bit, and then it's there. So it's our latest edition is a digital delay, fully voltage control. So which is yeah, helpful to have it. So because people say, okay, well, you can have a lot of outboard stuff, but the good thing is with a module, you can have it directly in the synthesizer. So you don't need to have to run somewhere else in the studio or have funny cables everywhere. So that's yeah.
Brilliant.
But and I still have some ideas, so people don't need to be concerned that I will stop doing stuff.
No, I can imagine. Yeah, the monster will become much, much bigger, I imagine. So you've mentioned Moog, obviously, and the inspiration that you've had from them and their style, maybe, and the aesthetic look and the accessibility of it as well, the easiness of it. And of course, it's quite different to most Eurorack kind of modules, which are much more small and fiddly. We were talking about this yesterday, I remember. And I think you called it a generational thing. Would you care to explain?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit that the guys who did grow up in the techno age, I would say, so this 90s type of thing, and started from there. What was available, affordable, I have to say, affordable, and not available was where even Moog was available or Moon, but what was affordable was Eurorack, so like Dopfer, for example. And people could start small, and obviously they got used to having small stuff to work with. For quote quote our generation, so I'm not a youngster anymore, so but for our generation, we really have been inspired by the large systems as such. The good thing is actually you are not limited to any of those, so they are fairly compatible, so you can match whatever you want to have. So because the Eurorack stuff, it's much more growing, much more diverse, much more weird stuff out there. So you can combine that weird Eurorack stuff with well, this solid, large Moon stuff, for example. So there is no limit, or using plugins or whatever. I think the good stuff these days is you have everything and you can choose from everything and put everything together, and it's fairly well works together. So which is completely different compared to the 70s or 80s.
Okay, so Gert has decided to give us a demonstration, a sonic demonstration of the monster behind him. So that means without talking, we'll be making some music. Take it away, Gert. Thank you so much, Gert. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the modules that you were utilizing there?
Yes, you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's the what the Ed Buller and the Hans Simmers did ask for was to avoid, well, lots of patch cords. So what actually is in here is the bus system. So where you have lots of, you can have 12 CVs and 12 gates, and they end up at these well, switches, and that's what I did here. So I switched on the outputs of switched on and off the outputs of the trigger sequencer, and with that one, actually that one, I switched on and off the keyboard. So obviously that's well, it's quite useful because yeah, you have everything at your hand, your fingertips, something like that. This down here is the delay, fully voltage control. Obviously, I haven't voltage controlled it, but at the moment, but so that's that one. And this is our fully voltage controlled filter bank, which has noise set into it from here. And actually, there's a sample on hold, which is controlling the open and close of the filters.
Cool, thank you. And so if people want to get more interested in Moon Modular modules, obviously they can go to your website, which isn't necessarily moonmodular.com. It's actually
it's Lunar Experience. Yeah, there's a lot of story behind that one. I won't tell it. I think it's at the very beginning we were a little bit concerned. So if you look at our logo, so there's the face, and then you have modular, and the face is probably the moon, and then you say, well, and everybody now these days says Moon Modular, and I leave it up to the imagination of people what is possible to think about Moon Modular. I think there's a company in Asheville. I don't know. So that's yeah. But just jokes aside. So at the very beginning, I wanted to really ship everything myself. But then Andreas Schneider, who is his carrier, so Schneider's Laden in Berlin, they are carrying our line. And he said, well, do you really want to ship more than one module? I said, yeah, sure. And he said, well, I want to help you. He didn't say it like that, but I think his idea was really good. And so for Europe, it's Andreas Schneider, so Schneider's Laden actually. For the UK, it's Audio in London. And for the US, it's Noisebug. And so Noisebug has quite a lot of stock at hand. So that if people want to buy stuff from the US, it's obviously best to go to them directly, or in Germany, or in the UK. Well, I sell at times. I sell stuff directly, and obviously people can call me. Email is better because some people, if it's 9 o'clock in the morning in the US, it's definitely not 9 o'clock in the morning in Germany. And for that, send a mail so that the answer may be fast or slow or both of it. And especially if you have questions, everybody knows probably what a filter is or what an oscillator is. But if we move into these routing things or connecting all the expanders for the sequences, it's better to chat with me so that we can sort out a little bit well what the objective should be.
Sure. That's a very good point, actually. I should mention that if people watching now are not so certain or want to learn more about synthesis, modular synthesis, and how synthesizers work, then head on over to the Ask.Audio Academy, because that's where you can learn stuff like that. But if they want to learn more, obviously, about Moon modules specifically, and talk to you directly and know what to buy, then you're the man to talk to, of course. So yeah, Gert, thank you so much for your time and for showcasing the Mini Monster. And I hope you have a fantastic Soundmit 2020, and hopefully 21 will be more of a physical edition than a virtual one.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to what will happen next, which obviously is the Soundmit, the virtual one this weekend. And and I'm always a little bit, I'm not a little bit optimistic, I'm optimistic. So we will see what will happen next year. And I guess it would be more fun because one of these aspects of these shows is you meet people in person and you can chit and chat and talk. And so I think this is what I believe is missing for myself these days. But anyhow, we are virtual now. We will be probably physical soon again. So yeah, let's live with it.
Yeah. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.